Assalamu alaikum everyone, my name is DILSHAD and I'm the blog editor here at Haute Hijab. We've been producing a fantastic series on marriage and families, a multifaceted landscape. And if you follow our blogs, you'll see that our writers have been writing about blended families, questions to ask before marriage, a snapshot of disability parenting, single mom life, post-divorce landscape, and many more to come. So as part of the series, we wanted to have a casual conversation here with some of our team members and writers at Haute Hijab about our own marriages and how we and our spouses met and married, lessons we've learned, our relationships with our spouses and our kids, and how they all have evolved. So let me introduce everyone who's here today. We have NOOR Suleiman, our community manager. She's been married for 7 years and she has a 3-year-old, yes?
4 now.
4, Malik is 4, and a baby who is here with us today. So Noor may be cutting in and out of this interview to care for her. And then one of my dear friends, Layla, who is a contributing writer here at Haute Hijab, a journalist, an educator, and the author of My Way to You and other books to come. And Layla's been married 28 years, mashallah.
Wow.
Yeah. And she is a mother to 5 children. 6.
Wow.
6?
Wow.
Got that wrong. Ranging in ages from 7 to 21. Yes? Melanie, who you all know, is the CEO of Haute Hijab, and she's been married to Haute Hijab COO Ahmed for about 10 years. Right? We celebrated 10 years.
10 in November, yeah.
Alhamdulillah. And Mona, who you also know, is our social media specialist, and she's been married about 1.5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Oh. So being here.
Yeah. Here we are, 5 women. Oh, and me, I'm DILSHAD, who I just introduced myself, and I've been married 20 years, and I have 3 kids, mashallah, at ages 19, 16, and 12. I want to first ask you guys all how long you've been married, which we already talked about, but how more than that, how you and your spouses came together. So can I start with Noor?
Sure.
Okay.
So I've been married 7 years. I literally had to do the math right now. 7 years, alhamdulillah. The way we got together is very interesting because I worked at his parents' store. They had a hijab store actually.
Really?
And it was the first one in like our area. And I had like resisted working there, but I wanted a job, and my dad was like, look, this is the only job I can find you. You take it or you leave it. You're not working at the mall.
Yeah.
So like, I kept like, you know, whatever. And then eventually I took the job, but like I took it begrudgingly. Like, I don't want to do this. And just like deal with all the Muslims and Arabs all the time.
Yeah.
And subhanAllah, he was the son of
That's the store
owner?
owner?
Yeah.
And you guys met and came together?
That's how we met, yeah. It's very
Mashallah.
interesting.
That's
She's
awesome.
leaving out when he saw her and he's like, who's that?
Yeah,
And then he came by every day.
What's funny though is that when I first saw him, I didn't know he was their son.
Oh.
And I like totally stereotyped him, and I was like, who's this kid thinking he could just walk into this hijab store? Like, who is he? And he just like walks into the word to me and goes to the back, where like his grandpa was in the back office. And I'm like, am I in trouble? Like, a stranger just walks in the back office. What do I do? I'm with a customer. And he didn't say anything to me. And of course, in my head, I was like,
Who are you?
Yeah. This is very funny.
All right, Layla, how about you? How did you and your husband meet?
Oh, interestingly enough, I was working for a Fortune 500 company as
Really?
a secretary, yes. And he used to make pamphlets, dawah pamphlets, and do dawah. And so my uncle, he loved him, okay? So he said, oh, Layla, I know this brother that needs some typing done on his pamphlet, so why don't you type it up for him? And here's his number just in case you have any questions.
Uh-huh.
And so as I'm typing it, you know, of course I had questions, and so we used to have these debates all the time over the phone.
Just about the pamphlets, right?
Just about the pamphlets, that was it. I was like, what do you mean by this, brother? Well, you have this right here.
Yeah.
He's like, what do you mean, brother? Like that. And he used to laugh just like that, and he'd explain. And then one night, I was babysitting for my uncle, and he knocked on the door, and I opened the door, and he was like, oh, I just came to see Inshura. And I was like, oh, he's not here, he's out of town. He's like, okay, so I'm like, he left. And I closed the door. And because then he was like, I'm Abdul Latif. And I was like, oh, I do the typing for you. Like,
You guys hadn't met face to face
We
yet?
had never met. It was all over the phone.
Okay.
And I was hot mess because you know how I like to like engage and like really questioning people.
Right.
So I really growled him, so he knew what he was getting. And so I closed the door and I looked and I was like, that is the man I'm going to marry.
Really?
So I did. And he dragged us behind. But then finally he placed intentions and we're married 2 weeks later.
How did you
2
know that? What
weeks.
made you say that?
Well, because I thought he was wonderful on the phone in terms of, like, he really just engaged my mind and everything like that, and I just really, and he was gorgeous when I saw him. He's hot and he's smart. Hot and smart. What else would I
And he's doing Dala, you know?
and he's doing Dala and stuff. So I went all in. My uncle got back into town. I was like, look, that brother right there. Brother Uncle T. And so my uncle was like, okay. He went running out.
Did your uncle mean to like set you guys up?
He
like
did.
that?
He went through all of these daggone lanes and everything like that. And then finally, after I was married, okay, then he tells me, you know that insurance said, you know, we was waiting on you, brother.
So Melanie, can you tell us about how you and Ahmed got together?
Yes. Our story is not very interesting or fun. My friend was a friend of his friends, and so the two of them worked together to hook us up. So we met through friends, and it's a long, drawn-out story, but basically started over email, and I was, you know, I never turned anybody down when anyone came my way. I was like, let me give anybody a fair shot. And then we started talking over email, and then I was like, I'm not into this guy. So I was like, let me just cut him off. And then I was overseas at the time, so I had just landed in America, and I was like, poor dude, let me just like let him off the hook. So then he sent me an email like right before I went to do that. And in that email, he had laid out his thoughts on marriage, which were like word for word how I felt about marriage, which were somewhat unconventional for our community. And I was like, I need to get on the phone with him tonight. So we pretty much did, and we got on the phone, and then we didn't get off the phone until like 9 a.m. the next morning.
Oh, mashallah.
That's it. So we just knew.
We just knew.
We actually got into a fight on that phone call about our wedding and how he wanted a mixed wedding, and I was like, well, I won't be there then. Nor will my family or my parents, so it's up to you, but if you want me there, it has to be separate. Which he was like, what's a separate wedding? So that's how we met.
That's a good story.
I feel like you went through like a full relationship in those hours.
He
Like,
did,
right? And you fell in love. And like,
And you thought about the wedding. Okay, Mona, come on, tell us about your marriage.
So I guess I'm kind of similar to your story, but I mean, we met through a mutual friend, not two people, but it was one person who was friends with him and knew me from my community, and just randomly reached out to me on Facebook and was like, hey, how are you doing? And I'm like, okay, why is this guy reaching out to me? And that's weird, because I know he's engaged. I was like, that's weird. Yeah. I was like, why is he reaching out to me? And he's like, so listen, this is really awkward, but I know someone. I think you guys would be really good together. And I'm like, all right, what's this guy's story? Tell me about him. So he told me about him. I was like, okay, sounds interesting. And I'm like, you can have him message me on Facebook. And so he did, and we just kind of hit it off from there. Alhamdulillah, it just kind of went smoothly. So yeah, I guess we were married maybe a year after that, maybe less, probably less after that. Yeah.
I feel like I'm the only one who had a very traditional arranged marriage. I like to call it semi-arranged because the word arranged kind of puts me off, because it's not like, you know, he was brought and I was brought and it's like you two marry each other and that's it. But we were definitely match made. We had family friends who thought we would be good together, and we knew each other. Like, we knew each other from kids, because we are from the same town in India, and we had met each other before, but we just never looked at each other like, that's a potential husband, that's a potential wife. We were suggested to each other, and my parents were very interested in him, and I believe his parents were interested in me, and so we talked about it, but we didn't talk as much as I wanted to, because both of our families are very conservative. He was in India and I was in America, and that was not what I had expected, to marry someone who was coming from India. But we didn't talk as much as I wanted. We talked a little bit, and then I went to India and we had one date. Just one. So it's similar to your 9-hour conversation, but ours was like maybe an hour-long date. That's it. Chaperoned by my father and my uncle, who sat like over there, and I was like, yeah, please go farther away. And we talked about all the important stuff, which is why I really like that 100 questions to ask before marriage, because that's kind of like what we did in a condensed version. Like we went through all the important stuff, and it was like, yeah, I think I want to do this. And also, yes, I did istikhara, prayed on it, and it felt right. So I said yes, he said yes, and here we are. When I've been doing these stories and talking to my writers, we talk about things like, and you're going to be doing a story on like courtship, what courtship looks like now, and like halal courtship or something that's being match made or dating, or, you know, outright dating. I mean, would you guys say your marriages were like a courtship or just like a one-time meetup, or like, how do you think?
I mean, I was very resistant to use the word dating, even though that's like kind of like what we were doing. I never said the word because it was so taboo to say. So it was always like, we're talking. But I would say mine was more in the traditional. But not like, it was, when we got off the phone, I was like, now you need to call my dad.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
Because that's the next step, and if we needed, if we want to continue, my parents need to be involved.
Well, we had a working relationship starting off, and so then it shifted into courtship after we became engaged. And so for 2 weeks, you know, our worlds were only about each other. There was a lot of talking, and I know in a lot of American Muslim culture, there is like this whole idea of not using the word dating, even though it is dating. It's just that it's dating with the purpose of we're going to get married, we're not going to get married. And I think that's really kind of like the definitive factor that kind of turns it into courtship, because courtship, the objective is marriage. Right. Okay, so, and it takes different forms, whether it's a 9-hour conversation, whether it's 2 weeks, whether it's longer, you know. And interestingly enough, depending on the length, that can kind of determine the viability of the relationship overall, and that's way outside my purview. We need to talk to Zara J about that. Like young people, they may call it a sit down, where it's just like you guys did. It's like you sat down, you like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. What is it, Papa?
Pretty much. That pretty much was what it was,
Which is important. That is a very, very important part of it, because before your heart gets into it, it's better to get those logistics down. And I think there's a few questions missing from those 100 questions.
I also want to talk about the challenges in finding a good spouse, and how that has evolved over years. And there are some of us who've been married a long time, some of us who've been married, you know, for just a few years. And it just seems like anecdotally, like Muslims are having a harder time finding each other. And you guys seem to hear these stories in the circles that you guys are in. Like, do you feel like young people are having difficulty finding each other?
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
And why?
I have a lot of friends that are single, actually, and I struggled too before I found out it was hard. It's just like, you know everyone in your community, which is weird. Like, there are guys and there are girls, and we all know each other, but it's like no one really connects like that. And it's just, we're all in a very tight-knit community. We don't really branch out. I always used to like to go to conventions and like try to meet new people and new Muslims, and that's how I like grew my circle, exactly. And that's how you know more people and they know other people. And I always encourage my friends to do the same, because it is really hard to find people. But I know there's like apps now, like Minder. A few of my friends got married off of Minder, actually. So it's been successful for them, but yeah, times are changing.
There's a lot going on, I think, especially for Muslim women, young Muslim women. There's a lot of things that they have to think about. They have to think about how is the society, inside Muslim culture, how it is that they're encouraged to go out there and to be what they want to be and to follow their dreams and everything like that. Now, juxtaposed against that are some very traditional ideas about women that are conveyed to the young Muslim men. So that when they come together, it's like, nah.
They're not connected.
They're not jiving a lot of times. You know, there's a very ugly side to it, where it's just like they don't really see young Muslim men as viable candidates for marriage because of what marriage may entail.
Be more specific.
Well, you know, if you're, like my daughter, for instance, she's an artist and she's young and she's free and she does her thing and everything like that. And one of the things that's about marriage that scares her the most is the idea that her autonomy is going to be less
diluted or less.
Yes,
yeah,
because she becomes somebody's wife. And so that kind of throws a lot of young Muslim women off. It's like, you know, that's not what I want to be. I don't want my autonomy. I want my agency. I want my autonomy. I want it to stay the way that it is. And unfortunately, the messaging to young Muslim men, a lot of young Muslim men, is the exact opposite. So this whole idea that you have to obey your husband, whatever he says, and everything like that. And we're raising young women that are like, nah, I'm not down with that.
Yeah, go chase your dream.
I saw Zahra Birru, she actually put a post on Facebook. I love that she was like out to dinner one day and this man came up to her with his little daughters and he was like, thank you for everything you do. You're such a role model. I want my daughters to be like you, all that stuff. And then she was like, you know, it was a nice moment, but then I had to pause and reflect because like we're raising our daughters to be strong, independent women nowadays, which is amazing. And like very driven, very successful, but we're not raising our sons to accept that in women
and support that.
Yeah. So that's what it is. So you have a whole generation of strong, amazing, empowered Muslim women coming out, and then you have a generation of
Muslim
men, and I will use the word boys sometimes, being like brought up to not accept that. And like, I love that. I want my daughter to be like you, but I could never marry you, kind of a thing.
Yes.
And I feel like that's, in my circles, that's a lot of what's happening, where it's like, either you're not vibing with the people you're meeting, you can't meet new people, or it's just a bunch of man-child.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it's something I think about often. You have sons, I have two. And especially with my younger one, I think about him and the society in which he's being raised and the friends who he has. And this is a conversation I have with my husband often because, you know, his father raised him so well, but they didn't like speak about these things openly. Like it was just understood that you were going to know that this is how you should treat women, or this is how you should behave with your wife, kind of being led by example. He watched how his parents were with each other, he watched how his aunts and uncles were with each other, and that's where he learned. But I've been telling him, listen, honey, you gotta have conversations with our children. Like we can't expect that they're just gonna absorb this by just watching us, like the way we did. It just changes fundamentally. There's way too many influences in everyone's life now. It's not just your friends. It's, you know, what you're seeing online, it's what you're watching on TV, it's what you're seeing in YouTube, it's what you're listening to. All of that is competing for their attention. So like, I mean, this is a different topic, but like when the time came to talk birds and bees, like I had to tell my husband, you have to talk to him about this. You can't just assume, which is not what was done with him, you know?
Yeah.
So these are active conversations that need to happen.
And you know, honestly, the broader culture, outside of American Muslim culture, the broader culture has a lot of toxic masculinity in it. I mean, that's just the reality. So there are all these messagings that are actually anti-ethical to Islamic teachings within the culture and outside of the culture to Muslim men, to young Muslim men. And how to combat that, I have no idea. I'm not
We have that in our own culture, girl. Arab culture, Desi culture, it's there.
Yeah, I guess it's like across the board. African American culture too. I mean, it's not something that any one cultural experience is immune to.
Absolutely.
You know,
It's the world at large.
It is the world at large.
Yeah.
But when you take it and you try to frame it as this is what Islam teaches, when it certainly does not, then that kind of becomes problematic. Because at the end of the day, if a young man wants to please Allah and he's getting the wrong messages of what pleases Allah when it comes to his wife, that can disrupt his relationship with her and also his relationship with his creator. So I think that education is important for everyone.
Absolutely. That's all the time we have for part 1 of this discussion, but please come back and join us for the fantastic part 2.
Salam.
Salam everyone.